Welcome to HarmonyTALK, a podcast about dreamers and doers. Here, people from all walks of life tell us about their dreams, how they fulfilled them, and the moment they knew there was no turning back. This podcast is sponsored by AM Skyer, a third-generation family insurance business started in 1920. I'm your host, Todd Stevens. My guest today spent his younger years as a straight-laced kid from New Jersey, but just days before his 19th birthday, he found himself in rehab for substance abuse. For the next 4 years, he battled his way through recovery, facing some very dark days along the way. Today, his dreaming and doing, his mission, quite frankly, is to help others with similar struggles, and he's sharing his story in his new book, My Addiction, My Superpower. Mitch Motivates, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Todd. I'm honored and grateful.
Well, thank you again. And Mitch, let me begin by offering you congratulations on achieving 16 years of sobriety, as I understand it.
2 days ago, this past Sunday, August 25th, if this podcast is in the future, I celebrated 16 years of continuous sobriety, abstaining from all mood or mind-altering substances, drugs, alcohol, you name it.
Well, that's an amazing accomplishment. So certainly all of our congratulations go to you for that. Takes a tremendous amount of willpower, I know, and having read your book, I know you've certainly been through it all. And you're sharing some of the most personal, candid details of your life in this new book. You really get personal. How did addiction start for you as a straight-laced kid from New Jersey, by all accounts?
Great question, Todd. Let's get right into it. I always say I grew up with every possible opportunity a kid could ask for. My parents are great. My family is great. My brother's great. The school I went to, every opportunity. Everything is different with my relation to drugs and alcohol, though. The first time I took a drink, it was just 3 guys in my friend's basement, totally normal. His dad was out of town, and he's like, I have some beer in my basement. I took the drink. I was off to the races right away. I got that warm sensation and that feeling like an apple pie on a warm summer day. It was like freeing for me, and I chased that instantly. Right away, I started drinking alone. I started stealing alcohol. I started raiding my parents' liquor cabinet, taking some out, replacing it with water. I would go to hang out with my friends and I would steal a bottle of wine. Then I would go home and drink it alone. It was like right off to the races. I just have an abnormal relationship to alcohol and later drugs. It honestly led me to the gates of hell, I like to say.
And, that's a story that, you hear youngsters who get their first experience, very typical as you did. However, for you, something clicked. Did you know right off the bat that you might have a problem with this?
I didn't think I had a problem. I knew right off the bat that I wanted to chase that feeling of being drunk and or high. And that's all I wanted to do as soon as I found that moving forward. And to me, the reason I got into drugs is because I was under 21 and drug dealers don't ask for ID. So it was easier for me to start smoking marijuana than it is to steal alcohol or to ask someone to get it for me. And like right away, I chased the feeling. I was like, this feels pretty good. So why am I only doing it once a day? And I started to get creative with it. I didn't think I had a problem. This is what I was doing. I was like, if I have different groups of people that I like to smoke weed with, why don't I hang out with each one of them once a day? After a while, I was like, okay, so they don't think I have a problem, but I can enjoy smoking weed multiple times a day. And it just progressed pretty quickly. For me, one of the people I used to smoke weed with was like, have you ever tried cocaine? And this was in high school. I was 16, 17. And I was like, let's do it. And then I replaced the alcohol use with the pot use, with the marijuana use. I replaced the marijuana use with the cocaine. Now I just did cocaine. And it just keep on progressing like that until I ended up in treatment.
You got to wonder, too, how do you pay for all this as a 16-year-old? I mean, it's bad enough that you have a problem, you're doing something illegal, but then you obviously need to fund this. Were you finding ways to fund this and, are you stealing from parents? Were you going out and getting money in the street? I mean, how does this happen?
Yeah, funny story. So I had some money saved. I had a bad attempt at being a drug dealer. Have you ever seen the movie Scarface, Todd?
Well, certainly. Sure.
I always joke that I was the worst drug dealer in history because I broke the cardinal rule of being a drug dealer: do not get high on your own supply. Right from Scarface. When I was deep in the addiction that I was, it eventually progressed and I was a daily cocaine user. I had this thing where I would steal credit cards. I would go to the local mall or I would go to like a CVS and I would buy gift cards with the stolen credit cards. And this was before they asked for ID. I had a couple dealers that would take gift cards as payment. They would give me like 35 cents on the dollar. I didn't care because it was stolen money. So I pulled every scam in the book, but it was definitely lying, cheating, and stealing to get more. And that's really when I probably turned from a cucumber into a pickle into an addict, when I was lying, cheating, and stealing to get more. And it quickly progressed into that. It got pretty bad.
Now, how were you operating like this as a high school student? I mean, parents, did they see signs of this? Were you exhibiting signs of alcoholism and drug addiction at this time?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I want to be as specific as possible in order to help maybe parents or families who have a loved one in their life struggling with addiction. The first thing I happened that I was starting to be unreliable. I would miss class, I would miss family events, stuff like that. The second thing is that I would start to get in trouble. I tell the story in my book how I blacked out at band camp during the high school marching band, and someone mailed an anonymous letter home to my parents. Graduation night from high school, I got arrested. So I was handcuffed to a chair when everyone was celebrating. One time I was driving drunk and I came home after curfew. I was drunk. It was raining and I had a flat tire, and I pull up and my parents made me strip and they searched me. But the thing is, I was like such a creative liar. I always got out of it. It was like an excuse after an excuse. It was this person's fault, this person's fault. I was trying this. It was this. I never took accountability until I got sober. I'd like to tell the story of how I hit bottom. That I was in my freshman year of college. I was in Indiana at this point. I couldn't stop using drugs. Every day I would lie, cheat, and steal to get more. And every night I would say, how did this happen again? I thought today was my last day. I go back to Jersey and I ended up running away from home because I couldn't stop using. It was like I needed to keep using drugs. I couldn't stop. My parents ended up filing a missing persons report. They tracked me down to some motel room. The police found me. They took me to a hospital. My parents came, my family came, and I had IVs in my arm. And at that point, I knew the jig was up. I said I had a problem and I needed help. Broke down crying. A week later, I was in treatment. My parents took me to one doctor, asked him what to do. He said, go to this place. They said, okay. And I was there a week later.
Thank God you got that help at that time. Had you ever thought about what would have happened if you hadn't gotten that help? Where would you have been?
I'll answer that by saying this. I mean, we say that the fate of the alcoholic or the drug addict is three things: jails, institutions, or death. I believe that with all my heart. That's why everything I have today is like trying to help others carry the message and share my experience, strength, and hope. In the help that I could share something that can be beneficial to anyone, a family member, or a person affected by drug use, drug addiction, alcoholism, any type of addiction.
Thank you for that answer. I mean, it's tremendously impactful to hear your story directly from your experience and think about those three outcomes you mentioned. And I have to put myself in that car on the way to rehab. I recall from your book a 3-hour or so ride to Karen with your parents. And you said, what you put your family through the years is tremendous. What was that car ride like on the way to Karen, knowing that you're heading to rehab?
The first thing I'm thinking of, I listened to the interview of Robert J. O'Neill. He's the SEAL Team 6 member that killed Osama bin Laden. The first thing I'm thinking of is the interview with him when he's explaining to this guy, listen to what the helicopter ride from Afghanistan to Pakistan was like when they're on the way to his house. And he said, guys were sleeping because they were so focused. I slept half of the car ride. The jig was up and I knew that I was getting help. And I was so focused and so grateful that I was on the way to a place to get help that I slept. I used drugs the night before. I got high. I was up all night. So I slept. And I remember being so grateful that I was going to a place that I could finally get the help I needed. I mean, help is out there if you have a problem with drugs.
And it seems like you're in the right mindset at that time because you knew, it sounds like, there was no other way for you, or you knew the other ways and you chose not to continue to follow those paths, if you will. So many people who don't see that coming, who can't stop or won't stop, aren't blessed with that ability to see what potentially could be out there for you. So you get to Karen and, you were there willingly. What's that experience like? You get to rehab. So many of us, have heard certainly many stories. It's covered in the media. Help is out there. You've experienced that firsthand. And can you tell us a little bit what that was like for you?
I was so grateful that I needed help because I feel like my mind was moving so quickly for years. And finally, I didn't have to lie anymore. I didn't have to cheat anymore. I didn't have to steal. I was finally getting the help I needed. So it was like really a deep breath for me. And I had a fantastic experience in treatment. I went to a world-class facility. It was late April, so it was warm. And I got there and guys were playing football outside. I was like, is this a drug addict summer camp or what? And treatment was great because I was done lying, cheating, and stealing. I stuck with the right people. I mean, for good or bad, I got an education on drug addiction and alcoholism. I say for good or bad because it's like anything. If you seek out the wrong people that maybe have been court ordered to treatment and are trying to smuggle drugs in, you're not going to be with the right people. But I stuck with the winners. I wanted to be there and I listened to the professionals. And I still carry those principles with me today over 18 years later. That was April 2006. It's over 18 years ago. I was in treatment. I was just leaving at this time 18 years ago after 4 months.
Yeah, and you're like a college sophomore or freshman sophomore year, so that age bracket. Now, one of the things I read in your book that was very helpful for you was there were people of a similar age there, so you could relate and they could relate to you through their stories. How critical is that?
Yeah, I was in the young men's primary, which primary care is 28-day program. And then I went to the young men's extended care, which is a 90-day program. So I was there for 4 months. The community of people was like so refreshing because you just hear similar stories. You hear similar people are in similar points of their lives. Again, like I'm stupid sometimes. I need to see people doing it in order to believe that it can be real. The community of people that I wasn't alone and I could be with other people who we have a common struggle and then a common goal in staying sober really helped me a lot. And that's another principle that I learned in treatment that I take with me this day. I mean, it wasn't until 5-6 years into my sobriety that I started to make friends who weren't sober. I kept that up, Todd.
Yeah, and that's a big step. And speaking of steps too, I know you really felt the 12-step program helped you tremendously. And is that something you carry on through life today?
I went to my first AA meeting, 12-step meeting in treatment, and we learned a lot about the 12 steps. And I'm very active still, even 18 years later in my program. One of the things that I do is I give people all the options of recovery and I let them choose what's best for them. And that's what I was given. It was a little bit militant, but I needed it at the time as a 19-year-old kid. But AA is the oldest recovery program and it helps the most people. When I first started out being a sponsor, I would say AA has no monopoly on recovery. If you find something, I'm beg you, that's easier, that takes less of my time, that's like some sort of pill, that maybe like a 15-minute hypnosis session that cures my alcoholism and will promise freedom, I am all in. I'm down. I'm leaving AA in a second. You know, and 18 years later, I haven't been proposed that option, but I'm still have my mind open. But no, jokes aside, it works the best for me. And I went all in and I stayed sober. So why wouldn't I think it's the best?
You are the proof. You're the living proof of that. And so others don't think that, you went away for a month and then followed AA and everything's been fine. That wasn't the end of recovery for you. In other words, you just didn't go to Karen and come out and say, hey, all is fine. You took other steps. You went to other lengths in that program. Can you just spend a minute telling us what that looked like the next 3 or 4 years for you?
Of course. I mean, I just had smart feet and I just didn't really listen to what I thought I wanted to do. I listened to the professionals and I had smart feet. I just put one foot in front of the other. So I went to treatment. Then I went to the extended care program. So another 90 days. I didn't have to stay for 90 more days. I did. From there, I went to a halfway house. This guy, Scotty, who ran the house, used to work at Karen and then he lived in the Poconos, which is like an hour and a half, 2 hours from Karen. And he had a house for guys only. It's like a halfway house. So I lived with him for 4 months. Scotty told me to go to meetings, told me to get a part-time job, told me to go back to school. I did all those 3 things. From there, Scotty said, I want you to get an apartment in the area. I want you to live with guys from the house. So me and 2 of the guys got an apartment together. I'm just surrounding myself with the sober community at this point. Everything I was doing is sobriety first, then everything else after. From there, I got another apartment with one of the 2 guys in another area of the Poconos. And it was only in that point till I was like, you know what, maybe I could go back to Jersey. But I found out that Rutgers University had a program for students in recovery. I applied to the program. I had meetings with them. They helped me get into Rutgers. And I lived in this sober college dorm. I ended up living there for 3 years. Then through that program, I had an internship and then would move in New York City. When I moved to New York, I moved in with a sober guy I met at Rutgers. So for like the first 6 years of my recovery, I lived with sober people. It was the only thing that was important to me. I'm so happy I did that because I sustained a strong foundation, Todd. It was unbelievable. And then the rest just sprouted from there. This is what it was like, Todd. Do you know how a bamboo tree grows?
Absolutely.
You plant the seed for the bamboo tree and you have to water it at the same time, same amount each day. And weeks go by, same time, same amount. You're watering this bamboo. You don't see anything. Months go by, years go by, 2, 3, 4 years. You're watering the bamboo at the same time, same amount every day, and you don't see anything. But what's happening is under the surface, what you can see is the foundation is getting so strong and spreading and the roots, and you're throwing anchors everywhere. By the time I think it's like after 7 years of watering the bamboo at the same time for the same amount, it spurts up to 75 feet in 6 weeks. And that is like what my recovery looked like. Every day I was grinding it out. I was putting recovery first. I was building a solid foundation, and it wasn't perfect. Storms came. I had relapsed. I got girlfriends. My cousin died, but I was watering the bamboo at the same time, the same place. I was building the solid foundation. So by the time I was in New York and I was on my own, my bamboo tree just spread, and I was able to be successful in the city with that recovery as my foundation. So it's like the bamboo, Todd.
It's an incredible story. Yeah. When you've got that strength at the base, you can waver at the top a bit and still remain strong. And even though you mentioned briefly relapse and you go into detail in your book, you didn't give up. You didn't just say, well, I tried this. It wasn't for me. This is apparently who I am. Is it because of that foundation you kept coming back to center?
One thing I know about myself is I have a high pain tolerance and I don't quit. I think it's why I enjoy running marathons. I'm unathletic and I'm like short and have a little belly. But somehow I've ran 7 marathons and 3 half, but like I just won't quit. So every time I relapsed, my foundation was so good that I just went back to meetings. Sometimes I even lied about it. I just kept going back to meetings. And there's always one day at a time, the principle to go back to. And I just kept coming back. And I just like, no matter how many times I failed, I got back up. I went back to meetings. I went told on myself, got honest with a sponsor or with my therapist or with my fellows in my community, whatever that was, either at Rutgers or New York or the Poconos. And I just kept coming back. I refuse to quit because I believe this is life and death. And like I told you already, the addict is set to the fate of jails, institutions, or death. I refused to quit, and I just kept coming back, Todd.
To have that amount of resilience and to talk to you and your energy and enthusiasm, around your sobriety and your life today are contagious. Do you consider yourself a dreamer?
Yes, I dream a lot. I visualize, I manifest. I've always been like that.
And I ask you that because this podcast is about dreamers and doers. And by the way, for our listeners, if you're enjoying this talk today with Mitch Motivates, you can check out HarmonyTALK podcast for our other dreamers and doers and our conversations there. We welcome you to do that. But, your life in New York really pivots. And in reading your book, I see so much motivation and dreaming because it's in this phase of your life that you're talking to people. And with your addictive personality, as you mentioned, you begin working out more. Soul Cycle. There's a great chapter in your book, Mazel and Soul Cycle. Mazel's your dog, I believe, as in Mazel Tov. And it really gets more into the personal side of what you do. And you're getting other people involved in recovery. You're working out at gyms and something clicks in you and says, I need to be doing this. Mitch Motivates comes about. Is that the dream of yours to kick that off? And is that where all that came from, that energy built up and positivity?
We learn in recovery that you must, in order to keep it, you must give it away. So Mitch Motivates comes from my unique experience living and then working and living and working in recovery, and the hundreds, if not thousands of people that I've met that I've hopefully been helpful to and touched their lives and families. And I decided that I need to share that in all ways. That's how I came up with the book. I was getting into podcasts heavily and reading a lot, especially in the pandemic. And I was like, what a better way to share my story than to write it down and to put it on Amazon. It's not only something I dreamt about, it's beyond my wildest dreams what my life is today. And in recovery, we say you're going to live a life beyond your wildest dreams because while I may be a dreamer, some of the stuff that I couldn't even imagine could happen to me. It's like even that good.
When you talk about dreaming, as we did early on, that's the key. Your dream is living that sober life and helping others, which has really turned into the doing part of your life. I wanted to just get your thoughts on a few things. In your book, you lay out a number of helpful tips. We're not going to call them steps necessarily, but helpful tips. And I'm not going to list them all because I don't want to be a book spoiler, because I encourage people to go out and get this. It's an easy read, by the way, keeps my attention, which says something. But a few things are great for me. Structure is priceless. Honesty will save your life. And one that really hit home for me was just because your job is helping people doesn't mean your job is helping you. And I think that's one we can all relate to, especially anyone who's in the healthcare field or anything along those lines. Is there one particular tip that sticks out to you as a must-have?
Todd, I'm just so grateful that you said those nice things about my book. I mean, thank you so much. I mean, literally, I'm a dreamer, like you said, so spot on. But we could start with the last one. It's important to me to be a productive member of society. There's a part in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous where they say, basically, don't be like the retired person in Florida with his shirt off tanning, complaining about the state of the union when you're on your ass, like enjoying the sun. I'm a productive member of society. My grandfather, may he rest in peace, worked till he was 94 years old. I know no other way than to contribute and to be productive to society. I have a lot of experience working in recovery, and my message to those people is like, just because your job is helping people doesn't mean it's helping you. Today, I have an opposite job. I don't work in recovery. The book is not really a money-making thing. It's just something I did for fun, just to put my name out there. And I think it's very important. It doesn't only have to apply to work in recovery, because the best analogy is when you're on the airplane and they make the security announcements, they say, put on your oxygen mask first before you put one on your loved one. Anyone can relate to that. Life can be so intense sometimes. In the past couple years, it's been very intense for mostly everybody. And we have to realize that we only get one life. And sometimes I just have to remember to stop and smell the roses. So I think like that is a useful tip to anyone who has a job, to anyone who's productive, that works for a living to put food on their table for their family. I always have to remember that just because your job is helping people doesn't mean it's helping you, to remind myself to take care of myself. If I'm not taking care of myself, what good am I to anyone?
Right. And you have to do self-check-ins, which is great. And you're so right. Your book offers a lot of advice, whether you're in recovery or not. I mean, just general life day to day. I'm going to squeeze a few more minutes in our remaining moments of your knowledge out to help people who might be waiting to hear this. So if you or someone you know is suffering from alcoholism or addiction of any kind, what's the first step?
The first step is knowing that help is out there. You don't have to navigate recovery alone, okay? And the best place that I would start is Googling treatment centers in your area, or calling your insurance company and asking if there's any treatment centers that take my insurance. And another tip in my book is it's never too early to ask for help. And I was talking about this last night with someone. I wanted to help their brother-in-law, and I said, he has nothing to lose by going to treatment or look at an intervention or even calling me. But he has everything to lose by continuing his life currently.
Good point. And how do you manage stress now that you've been clean and sober for 16 years?
Prayer, meditation, and fitness. Any type of workout works. And again, like I always point out the extremes to people. You could work out twice in one day, or you can take a 15-minute walk around the block. They both do the job. So any type, I reach for prayer, meditation. I reach for my phone. The phone is never too heavy. And any type of fitness works for me.
And if you could, what advice would you give your 15-year-old self if you could look back from today?
I would say one day at a time, Mitch. I remember stressing out at the first job I got after college. And I would just say to myself, one day at a time. And the last thing I'll share is man plans and God laughs. You may have this grandiose plan of what your life is going to be like. I know I did at 15. And now my life is upside down to what I would ever think, in a good way, that it would be.
Yes. And 16 years in recovery, celebrating that. How's life today, Mitch?
Life is amazing. I have a girlfriend who's hot. I have a dog. I have an amazing relationship with my family. I am an executive at my company, and people respect me and like me and want me there. I have a side project going that I wrote a book, and I'm on podcast and doing book tours. I am firing at all cylinders today, Todd, and every little thing in my life says property of Mitch's recovery. It has an invisible hologram that says property of recovery, AA, everything, because I am nothing without my sobriety, Todd.
Mitch, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you today. You've got me motivated, and I congratulate you on 16 years and wish you nothing but success, health, and happiness in the future. Thanks for taking so much time with us today, Mitch.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Can I share where people can find me, Todd?
Absolutely. Please do.
MitchMotivates.com. Mitch Motivates, one word, on any social media. And you can buy my book on Amazon, My Addiction, My Superpower. Thank you, Todd, for having me.
Thank you, Mitch. We've been talking with Mitch Motivates. He's sharing his story of addiction, recovery, and hope in his new book, My Addiction, My Superpower. Learn more about this dreamer and doer by checking out MitchMotivates.com and follow him at Mitch Motivates. And if you or someone you know is looking for a treatment center, visit treatmentatlas.org. And remember, help is always available at aa.org. This is Harmony Talk, presented by AM Skyer, a third-generation family insurance business started in 1920. I'm Todd Stevens. For everyone out there, keep dreaming and doing.